Hey everyone, happy Sunday. I hope all is well. So now that we've got this first week under our belt, my hope is that you've become familiar with the course, kind of looked ahead a little bit to see how it looks. As I stated in the syllabus video, it will repeat itself every 4 weeks, meaning you'll do a DB, which we did our introduction DB. And again, there's no requirement for that. But your first DB will be in week 3 where you have to follow the guidelines. But all that aside, you'll do a DB, quiz, DB, paper. DB, quiz, DB, paper. That's how it's going to go in this course, right? And so once you do this first 4 weeks, should be, you should have it pretty much down pat. But moving ahead, it was nice to meet some of you, at least through your introductions. As I mentioned, and get an idea of how why you're here or what you hope to gain. And as I mentioned in the welcome or the syllabus video, is that, I'm going to challenge the way you think. I think some of you might have mentioned you might be in a recovering lifestyle, others not. And I want to have all of us to start shifting our perspective to a clinical perspective. And so some things you're going to hear me say throughout the semester is going to be, we're going to start looking at the language we use. I will never label my clients alcoholic or addict. Let me rephrase that. In a self-help setting, completely appropriate. I mean, let's just take Alcoholics Anonymous. Most people are familiar, or Narcotics Anonymous. Yeah, they're going to use that language. It is Alcoholics Anonymous after all, or Narcotics Anonymous, right? So in a clinical setting though, however, we're not going to do that, right? We don't. And here's the thing you're going to come across is many professionals still use that language. And it's unfortunate. I think most of us know better today. If I'm going into a counseling office and someone starts saying, well, it sounds like you're an alcoholic, I'm probably going to leave, right? Or at the very least not come back. And let's take a page from the 12-step philosophy even, or from their history. If you know the history of 12-step work, in particular Alcoholics Anonymous, you'll know that their co-founder, Bill Wilson, when he talks about God, he in the original manuscript, you can see where he scratched God out and put God as you understand him or higher power. And the effort there is not because he changed his philosophy. It was because he wanted to be all-inclusive. And why would you want to be all-inclusive? Because you want to help as many people as you can. And if I have a client that comes into my office and I'm like, you're this addict, and that doesn't vibe with them, they're probably not coming back. How have I helped them? I haven't, right? And our number one philosophy of working with clients is to do no harm. And I don't know if I always say it right or wrong, but I say non-maleficence. I think I've heard it said non-malfeasance, but that means do no harm. That is our number one creed, if you will, as clinicians, right? We may not have all the answers. I rarely have all the answers. In fact, I never have all the answers, right? Because what may work for 10 people, the 11th it doesn't work for, but yet we continue to try to jam them into this box and say this is what recovery looks like, right? So again, I'm just gonna, we're gonna start shifting our thinking to a clinical perspective. And every semester I have someone email me. I teach this course, our course designed very similarly at Lone Star as well. And so every semester I have someone email me, or every other semester for sure, and want to challenge me on I needed to be told I was an addict, or I needed to be told I was an alcoholic. Great. I'm not discounting that for anyone. We all have our own past, and as someone who sobered up in a 12-step program 16 years ago, I'm fully aware how that works, and that's great for you. But what you have to understand as clinicians is it's not about us. It's not about us at all, right? It's about what that client is and what they're willing to do and where we're willing to meet them. I have an intern right now that I supervise, an LCDC intern. And one of the things that they struggle with is building rapport, in that I need to be able to relate, right? So I have to have the similar story to relate, because we're programmed, pun intended, to look at what recovery is or isn't. And according to 12-step work, and I'm going to use this language for this example, is nothing helps an addict or an alcoholic like another addict or alcoholic. I think there's great merit to that. I know there is in the setting. In a self-help setting, absolutely. In a clinical setting, not so much. right? So how do I build that rapport then? I build that rapport by showing empathy, active listening, creating an environment where they feel safe to want to talk to me. And so that's how I build that rapport, right? And you'd be amazed at how using our clinical skill builds that, and it works so well, right? So again, I'm not discounting the one-on-one, right? In fact, I would say this. If I'm having brain surgery, my brain surgeon does not have to have had brain surgery himself or herself to help me, right? We count on them to have knowledge and skill and be good at their craft. If I go to a support group for people who have had brain surgery, the person in that group or leading that group better have had brain surgery themselves. I hope that clarifies there's value in both. But our role, especially if you're coming from a place of, I made this change, became abstinent through this particular program, and now I want to share that. That's great. Your experience is valuable, right? And that's why we're going to go to these meetings in this course. You have to go to 3 of them, as I explained in the syllabus video. You get a choice in the first one between AA, NA, CA, which is Cocaine Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. You get to go to their family group, Al-Anon, or you get to go to ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics. So you get to choose from those 5. And then we're going to go to a Smart Recovery meeting at week 8. Then week 12, you're going to get to choose between Celebrate Recovery, which is a Christian 12-step program, and then either Dharma or Refuge, which are very similar programs, and they run on Buddhism principles. So I'll talk much more about those as we move. But the reason is not to choose whether you like them or don't, because you're going to hear me say this throughout the semester, as they are all good meetings. They're all good groups anyway, let me say that. They're all good programs. They're just not always a good fit for your person, right? And we're quick to label somebody, especially, this is where it can be a real double-edged sword for people who are in recovery, right? Well, this worked for me, and I know they're resistant if they're not doing it, or they're unwilling, or whatever. And there may be some of that along the way. You're absolutely going to run into some of that along the way. But my job as a clinician using motivational interviewing is, how do I move that needle and get them to engage, right? And so we'll talk much more about motivational interviewing. I will tell you this: if you're not familiar, it most likely will be one of your favorite parts. It is every semester for the students. It's at the core of what I still do 15 plus years in, is MI. And MI basically says we just roll with the resistance. I'm not here to choose for you. So remember this. I'm going to say this multiple times. It's not my job as a clinician to choose for a client. It's my job to walk with them through their choices. Now, it is my job to educate, to be familiar, to learn about these programs. And that's why I send you, not to say, well, because every semester I have some people say, well, I didn't like this one, right? Or I loved this one, so I'd send everybody to this one, or I won't send anybody to this one. You should recommend all of them, right? Now, if you have someone who struggles with God, you might not want to recommend Celebrate Recovery because you know it's a Christian 12-step program. If you have someone who is a person of faith, that may be a great option in lieu of AA or Smart. I send a lot of more analytical people to Smart Recovery who are more linear thinkers and concrete, right? So you'll get to know these programs. And again, it's not about our personal opinions. It's about what we know. And we always put it back on our client. Well, why is this? Let's talk about the potential benefits versus the potential pitfalls for you. And let's see what comes up for you. Now, I can say all day long, this is a great program. It saved my life. It saved my mama's life. It saved my brother's life. All these things, which all may be true and all good, right? But that's not the client. And the client lives a very different life. And we meet the client where they are. And so we ask them, this is our role, is what do you think's beneficial? Here's some potential benefits that you might experience at a 12-step meeting. Here's some potential pitfalls that you might experience. Let's try to see what works best for you. Here's something about Smart Recovery. Here's how they operate. That's our role. Look, we're as good as our resources as LCDCs. We can't do it all. We're not supposed to do it all. We don't want to do it all. I can't do it all. And this has nothing to do with particular license. I'm licensed in Texas and Florida as an LPC and LMHC, licensed mental health counselor and a licensed professional counselor, and I can't do it all. I'm weary of anybody that can. It's like I wouldn't hire a plumber to do an electrician's job. There's a reason people specialize in certain areas. I specialize in substance use disorder care, right? And so even at that, anyway, you kind of get the idea, but even at that, I still can't do it all, nor do I want to. Therefore, I need resources. Sometimes they want a female clinician, sometimes location, sometimes insurance, right? So it's our job to know about these things. And one of my extra credit assignments, and we'll talk more about extra credit as we get closer to the midway point, because that's when I release them. I think it's number 4 out of 5 is building a resource list. So that's always a valuable one. As I mentioned in the syllabus video, this is a course that everything we do is designed to help you be a better clinician. Everything from the assignments to the due dates to the policies to the late policies, right? Because I'm going to always ask this to you. What would you tell a client? How would you encourage a client in whatever the situation, right? I get emails every semester. Oh, I was busy. I couldn't make this meeting. Okay, that's a choice you make, right? But what would you tell a client? They all have families. They all have illnesses, right? We all get sick. Then none of it's convenient. They all have, many of them have children and families and jobs and lives and blah, 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 right? You get it. We all have those things. So really, how would you, if you're a clinician at a facility, people depend on you. And when you don't show up or do your piece on time, there's consequences for that, right? And it's not, it's just a chain natural reaction. So we want to start being on time, being professional, being those. And so that's everything in this is built for that, right? Whether you recognize it or not, the APA writing. Again, watch the video. That's not optional. We need you to watch that. If you haven't already, look at the examples. If you need help, reach out, because I got to assume you know if you don't. But here's why we do that. Here's why I'm a stickler for that. I'm doing you a solid because my hope is you're all going to go on and continue your education. But even if you don't, everything we do in the behavioral health industry is written in APA writing. Now, I'll tell you this. I was prepared as I could be to be an LCDC intern from my academic work and my practical. The one thing I wasn't prepared for as I moved on in education to become an LPC was the APA writing. And I got to grad school, and the very first class was, what kind of counselor do you want to be? And here's what grad school is going to look like, which I'm going to bring that back around here in just a few minutes. I didn't know APA writing, and I got a C in that class. That program only allowed 2 C's, and they gave you the boot, right? Not a great way to start. I mean, obviously, I managed to navigate that the rest of the way. I'm just saying it really was, I had no idea. So it's super important, and we're not here to master it. We're just here to be introduced to it and learn it. So my philosophy is try it, keep trying it, correct it. When I correct something, make sure you correct it on the next one. That's how it works. If you don't do it, that's where we lose points and things. But you'll figure that out along the way, right? But I'm always here to help. So that said, this week, well, one more thing before I run on to this week is on the syllabus quiz, most of us missed the question where it said, where it asked about the papers being turned in late. So just as it states in the syllabus, you can turn in any paper late for half credit. You'll get a 50 right off the bat, and then I'll grade it. So you may only get 10 points if it's not 100. If you get 100 on the paper normally, you'll get a 50, right? But it's going to be graded from there. You cannot turn a DB or a quiz in late. So keep that in mind. You can't do extra credit for zeros. You can do them for grades you didn't want. And like I said, I'll get plenty of bonus questions after every quiz. I think I do one. So that there was also one other. I changed some of your grades and I'll change it for what it's worth next semester. But when it asked about the points, 760 was the answer, but some of you put like 760 to 7 whatever. So I changed that and gave you the credit for it. All good. Just want you to know this is what you need to pass, right? You do the work, you'll have no trouble passing this class with the highest A I can give. I assure you, I will make sure you have plenty of extra credit, plenty of bonus questions. Trust me on that. The only people that don't succeed in this course are the people that don't do the work. That's it. Not the people that don't do it perfect, the people that don't do it, right? So keep that in mind, guys. I know we have a very small class this semester. It's just like I did last semester. So we'll make the best of that too, because we're going to do some work where we learn from each other in our DBs. So lastly, as we look ahead for this week, it's SUD in the family, substance use disorders in the family. I work with a lot of family members as a therapist, right? It's just for their loved one to help them navigate that road. Also, as an interventionist, that's all I work with is the families. The intervention with the intervened person's very limited time. My job is to work with the family there. I love working with families. And so one thing about our licenses as LCDCs is they're very clear in our scope of practice, right? So does anyone know what that scope of practice is or what that means? So I'll tell you what I'm going to do ahead of this week's quiz. I'm going to go ahead and give you a bonus question right now of what is an LCDC scope of practice? Just FYI, any of these kind of answers you'll probably find in the rules and regulations that govern our license, which may or may not be under your LCDC resources. I'll give you 5 points for a short answer. I don't want a dissertation or a page-long answer. Give me a sentence or two that explains what is our scope of practice as LCDCs. And then I'll address it next week. And then, if you need the 5 points on the quiz or up to 5 points, I'll give it to you. If you don't, you probably should know this anyway, right? So it's a good exercise to learn. So this week you read chapter 23 on SUD in the family because this affects everybody, right? And that's an important piece, quiz 1. And then next week is one of my favorite weeks, and it's probably the basis, again, with motivational interviewing of my philosophy, is the biopsychosocial model of addiction. And so it's your first DB where you have to follow the guidelines. Due on Thursday night, your original post, 200 to 250 words, with 2 resources, scholarly resources, meaning your textbook should be 1. You're welcome to use a textbook from another class. Certain websites I'll accept, most websites, honestly, but nothing, no Wikipedia, nothing like that, obviously, right? Those aren't scholarly. But anyways, that we'll talk more about that next time. But the biopsychosocial model is just that: biology, psychology, and socio-environmental, meaning everything else in the world. It really explains a lot for me, and I love the model. And then followed by that is your first paper, right? And I have it listed as AA or NA paper, but as I listed the other one, CA, Al-Anon, or ACA. And I'm going to encourage you to go to a meeting you haven't been to if you're in a program. ACA is a phenomenal program. Al-Anon's a great program. If you're not familiar with those, or Nar-Anon either, you can go to any of those. So yeah, guys, I look forward to our work together this week. So this week you got your quiz, which will be due next Sunday, followed by your first DB the following week, and then your paper after that. As always, I'm here to help. So please don't hesitate to reach out if you just want to. Well, if you have any questions, definitely email me. If you have any concerns, email me. If you have anything at all, I'm happy to meet with you via Zoom to go over APA or anything class related. I'll meet with you via Zoom anytime, as many times as you need. But if you just want to chop it up about the field of study or the field of work, private practice, intervention, any of the credentialing, the SAPs, what all that is, feel free to give me a shout. I always love to talk about this industry and this field of work and study. So, guys, I hope you have a great week. I hope you're settled in, and I look forward to hearing from you soon.